Welcome to the Catfish Weekly Web Show with Kyle, Chris, and Chuck as your host. It's catfishing, it's so much more flavor that you're looking for. It's Catfish Weekly, yeah, Catfish Weekly.
Catfish Weekly is brought to you by Whisker Wear Apparel. Get your catfish on www.whiskerwearapparel.com. Now, here are your hosts, Lyle Stokes, Chris Wallace, and Chuck Davidson.
Hello, everyone. Let me get you set up here. Welcome to Catfish Weekly, episode 65. Tonight we're going to be talking catfish stories. True or false, that's for you to decide. But if you guys have a story for us, put it in on the chat box there. We'll try to read it off and let everybody basically hear it as well. We'll tell you a few stories and everything. Probably talk about some miscellaneous stuff going on. So, Chuck, I guess since we always start with you, get us rolling here on some stories.
Talk about the one that really haunts me is a Friday afternoon after I got home from work. I beelined it to Gunnersville. I was camping up there at the time, and I was watching the current flow on the TVA app or the phone at the time, and I seen that they were cutting water off at 5:30, and they were running two turbines at the time, and I wanted to get up on the main lake while some current was pulling through and try to get a couple of hours of good fishing in. And I headed out in the middle of the lake, a place I've never fished before, and it was a spot that Jason Bridges had pointed out to me on the Navionics map. And he told me, he said, get off that bluff, boy, and quit anchoring down. He said, you get out there in the middle of that lake. And he said, that's where you're going to get a good one. So I got out there on the middle of the lake, and I was searching around with my 898, and I seen a very nice image on my down imaging. I've never seen anything like it before, and I drug my cursor over on it, and I marked it, and I went back around, and I said, well, I'm not going to try to drift with him. I'm going to try to precision anchor on him. So I looked, and I was 60 foot away, and I threw my anchor out, and I marked him. I didn't know, I marked the fish, so I guess it was the exact spot he was at that time. And I got 4 rods out, and I staggered them because they were only going to be about, 3 feet apart anyway. So I threw one out real far, and I came back closer to the boat as I went. And I sat there for about 15 minutes, and they cut the current off, and my rods started going down. You could see the line starting to sag because the current was starting to slack more and more. And one rod just straightened right out, bent all the way down. I've never hooked anything like that before that felt like that. And I was by myself, and he'd already tangled up my other lines. It was the furthest one I threw out. And he already came in, tangled everything up. He'd already turned my boat around about 90 degrees. After about 30 minutes, I got him up to the boat. I had both hands in his mouth. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even hardly get him up out of the water. I couldn't get his lip hardly up to the gunnel. I tried to get him up in the boat a couple of times. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just nervous and excited. I don't know what I would have did if I'd have got him in the boat. I'd have probably never been able to get him back out, and he'd have probably kicked my butt. But I didn't want to let go. I just sat there with both hands in his mouth. I just kept looking down at him. I was just hoping a boat would drive by to help me or get a picture of him. So I I let go with one hand. I slid one hand down to the circle hook, and I got a hold of it. And I had to snatch a couple good times, and I got the hook loose. And I just looked at him for a few more seconds, and I just pushed him off. And I've caught an 85-pound catfish, and he was much larger than it was. I'm not saying how much. It was totally different shape, more. It looked longer, a lot longer, and more lean. It didn't have, by it being in the water, I really couldn't tell much. But I mean, that's the nightmare I keep having, and that's what's driving me to keep going back and heading to the Tennessee River and trying to go back after her again.
Mhm. All right. Lyle, you got one?
Oh, nothing like that. I can't top that.
Anyway.
One of the stories that I've got that I and you know it's pretty close to me. Years ago, I was fishing on Truman Lake, and I used to fish that all the time by myself. And the Osage Arm is one of my favorite places on that lake to fish. And I went up there on a weekend morning, and I took some live bait, and I was actually fishing for blues, but I was chucking one rod up next to the bank, trying to see if I could get a flathead, and I did. I got a big old pig, and fought it and fought it and fought it. Finally got it up off the bottom, and it got to the top, and I knew it was a really good fish, and it took right back down. And at the time, I didn't have a very big net with me, and you know, it was a big net, but it wasn't quite big enough. And when I got this old girl up to the top, I was sitting there fighting with her and trying to get a net and hold the rod in one hand, and I reached down to put this net over top of her, and I couldn't get her in it because the net would hit her pectoral fins come out the side. And I was so afraid I was going to lose this thing, and I reached down to grab hold of her in the mouth, and she clamped down on my hand, and when it did, I pulled my hand back out, and it just took all the hide off of it. So I decided to go back to the net, and the only way that I could get this fish in this net was to stand it up and bounce it up and down, and ended up getting her tail in the net and just flopping her in the boat. It was just a cluster from the word go, and I immediately, well, as soon as I got back to Springfield, I stopped at Bass Pro, got the biggest net they had, and in fact, I still have that net. But you know, the moral of the story is be prepared and have equipment big enough to deal with whatever size fish is in the area you're fishing, whether it be on a lake or a river or whatever. You know, you make sure you have something big enough to handle the fish if you get one on, number one, and that you got a big enough net or whatever, number two, to get them in. So I mean, there's a lot of parts of equipment that you need to make sure that you're big enough. If you're fishing for an area where you're full of channel catch, you don't need anything like that, which is what I actually had been catching with smaller fish up there in this area. But that old gal was getting ready to spawn, and she was up next to a brush pile, and I just happened to be lucky enough to grab her. And I don't remember what she weighed now. It wasn't 50, but it was upper 40s or so, and pretty nice fish. That's one that I can remember that one that we got in that I never thought I would get in, and I don't fish by myself much anymore. I do enjoy doing it, but I just don't get to anymore. But just moral of the story is have equipment big enough to handle what you're dealing with.
I hear you. And fishing by yourself is, you know, very, very rough. And, you know, I suggest anybody, if they get in a situation like that, just don't, you know, you can hurt the fish very bad. I would just, you know, do what you can, look at it, you know, don't even try to get it out of the water. You know, it's hard enough to handle them with two people, much less try to get pictures and all that. If you can lay them down on the bank, or if you can get them up on the boat and lay something beside them, you know, to get a picture to show, to scale them too. But
Oh, I agree. You know, if I had it to do all over again, that fish would have never come in the boat.
yeah,
I would have left her to the side of the boat, and got a hold of her the best way I could have and unhooked her and released her. This was several years ago, and I wanted a picture of her and I wanted to wait on her and all that stuff, but it's not as important now. Now, if it had been a 100-pound fish, it might have been a little different, but I have better equipment now than to do that with. But, in them days, I wanted pictures and I wanted weights and links and all that, and that stuff is not as important as it used to be to me. But if I didn't have the equipment to get it in the boat safely now, I would just unhook it in the water and let it go.
Yeah, the 58-pound flathead that I'm holding up vertically by the lip in our intro, that was a few years back, and that's before I learned the damage that can be done, by holding them that way. I had no idea that their jaws can pop loose. I had no idea that their guts can shift and pop their esophagus loose and killing them. Even though they swim off, you can beat one in the head with a sledgehammer for 30 minutes. They're more than likely going to swim off, because I've actually seen a catfish that has been filleted on both sides drop back into the water and actually swim off with meat gone from each side.
Well, here a few years ago, we was at the tournament, and we was running the tournament, and some guys come in to weigh in some fish, and they had caught fish, and their live well was full. We have, like I say, we have a 3 fish limit at Twisted Cat Outdoors, and these guys come in and weighed 2 fish within a couple hours of takeoff, and the live well was already full with 1 big fish. And they weighed in 2 others, and they was in a bass boat, and they had these things laying in the bottom of the boat on the carpet, and those fish, all the slime coat was gone off of them. There's red blood wasn't running out of them, but you know how they look after they've been rubbed really hard, and we changed rules after that where you couldn't just do that, but there's no doubt in my mind that those fish probably didn't make it. I would guess infection would probably got a hold of them, and once something like that happens, and you change the rules and you make adjustments so that things like that don't happen again. But this was several years ago, and I remember that and never forgot it. So there's a lot of things that you have to repair as time goes along.
Yeah, I mean, you catch us something like, the flathead I caught, he was 58 pounds. At the time, it was a fish of my life. It's still the flathead of my life. And knowing that I could have did damage to that fish that caused him to maybe not make it but a week longer or something, I mean, you just don't know how much that kills you on the inside, not being educated enough to know those things.
Well,
I've seen guys on all the forums holding them like that, and it made a really cool picture. And I didn't read anything before that time, and after posting the picture, some guys educated me about it really quick, about supporting the stomach and everything. And,
but that's learning, Chuck. I mean, you didn't know any better, and you do know better now, so that will never happen again.
Right.
You won't do it no more.
I know, but I mean, I'm just telling the guys that's just how you feel later on.
Absolutely.
If they ever did that, that's why I'm saying, being on some really good catfish sites that has this education where guys, they're not really getting on to you. They're telling you how it is, and they're not know-it-alls. A lot of these guys just passing stuff along. And, I just wish I would have been on some really good educational sites before then, so I would have known better.
I think those guys, they come in and they try to help you, so they know that you're catching quality fish. They want to help you so those quality fish will be there for years to come, and I honestly believe that.
Oh, yeah.
One thing before we get too carried along, I promised Rob that I would tell everybody that he has his issues fixed with his shirts and stuff, and Whisker Wear Apparel now has all their outstanding orders have been shipped, so if you don't have your order, it will be coming really quick, so just wait on the mail. That there's something we can't do anything about. And he had also made a thing on our deal that he wanted to congratulate Justin Connors on a great win this weekend, and I would also like to congratulate Justin. That was an outstanding day you guys had, and job well done on those fish down there. Chris, anybody that is called Fudd has got to have a story. You got to have a good story.
Oh, I got lots of stories, but I was just going to say one of my stories. It wasn't necessarily about a monster fish or anything like that, but you know, my dad got me started with catfishing. I was a Army brat for the first 3 years, and then my mom and dad got a divorce, and I moved around. I didn't see my dad a lot, but when I did, a lot of times we went fishing. Later on, and I'll tell you one of the stories a little bit later about some of our early fishing trips, but this first one I'm going to tell you is about he got remarried and moved to Tennessee. I think I was about 16, 15 in that area. And they live right on a mountain. There's a good river right down from him. And I went down to visit him for a weekend, and we decided to go catfishing out there. He was tired and stuff. We went through the day and fished a little bit, and I wanted to fish through the night, and he really didn't. So pretty much he just put me in the John boat and let me go out by myself. And their house was about, just a little ways up the road on the mountain there from the river. And all my ever fishing with my dad was normally with like a Zebco 303 or whatever, the 202, or I mean, it was just a little rod and reels with like 10-pound line on them. And that's just all we did. It's all we fished with, really. I never learned about the clickers and bait casters and stuff until about 5 or 6 years ago. And fishing with the heavier lines and braids and stuff like that, we just used, the rod and reels you get from Walmart, a Zebco 202. And so he sends me out in the little John boat. I decided to go right under the bridge, and I only fished with 1 or 2 poles, and I had some bluegills and stuff, and I threw a bluegill out, and I threw a probably like a chicken liver or something back then out on not night crawler. We used night crawlers a lot, and there was some stuff flowing down the river that night, and I every once in a while get something caught up on it, and have to get it off of it or break it and retie it and whatnot. But it was a few hours into the fishing. I seen my little Zebco pole start doing a bend, but it was a real slow bend. And so I got to thinking, okay, well, I got me another tree or something floating down the river, got a hold of my line. So I pick it up and I feel it, and it sure enough, it feels just solid, it just feels like a tree or something. So I'm trying to wiggle it off and get it off of there, and I'm, I start pulling up on it and giving it some good flex, and I get to feeling it, and I'm trying, and it almost feels like the tree is sort of coming back towards me a little bit, like I'm pulling it back. So I'm like trying not to break it, trying to pull it against the current and come back to me so I can save my hook and stuff. And like within a few minutes, I feel something. I feel a little bit of movement, and to me, it almost felt like I was still hooked on a tree, but like I had a channel cat that was on the other line, on the end of it, like my line was wrapped up in the tree, but still had a fish on it. So that's kind of what I started thinking at that point. That I'm like, oh, I got a fish on here, but I got to get it off of this tree, or try to get this tree in with it. And so I'm pulling on it, and I get the feeling like this thing is not a tree, that it's a fish. And then I get back to the thinking that it's a tree again. I'm now, I'm back to the point where, okay, this is not even a fish. I was just imagining things, and there's no movement here. It's just a big old tree. And so comes up to the surface eventually, and I'll have to say this was a 30 to 45 minute fight. And I'm sitting here and I'm just, I mean, forever, just not trying not to break my line. I can't tell if it's a fish or not a fish. And I pull it up and finally it comes to the surface next to the boat. And I don't know, like if your brain is already thinking something, it's what you see. But I swore it was a giant log. It wasn't a fish. It wasn't nothing. Pull it up to the side. I reached down to grab a hold of it, and that's when it just flipped out. It was a giant flathead. It basically peeled all my drag back off, went back down, and and another 5 or 10 minutes, he was pretty wore out. But I pulled him back up. I had a little tiny net, got his head in the net, and then grabbed a hold of his tail and pulled him in the boat. Um, for me, being 15 years old and previous fish that I caught have been maybe 6, 7 pounds or so. It was a monster. I mean, it was absolutely humongous. I ran up. I took the boat over to the bank, ran up to the house, told my dad I had a giant fish in the boat. Um, he was like, "Yeah, I don't believe you," whatever. They ended up driving down with me. Long story short, here it was about a 22 or 23 pound flathead that I caught on the Zebco pole with a 10-pound line, monofilament line. And it was just a battle of my life to me, and it was the first larger fish that I ever caught, and I felt like I earned it. I really worked the fish and worked the line and was able to I guess know my equipment and know what it could handle, know what it would, basically giving it the right drag and really just, even though I couldn't tell if it was a fish or a log for the longest time. I got it in, and it was really neat. And then the only picture I ever got of it, the guy, these are Tennessee people, couldn't use the camera, so I got a picture of me holding it, but you can't see my head. He completely cut my head off on it. And I will say this, I was holding it the wrong way too. I was holding it by the mouth, and it's something that, being just not knowledgeable about it, you learn about it, and I don't know why some people feel that they either know everything or it's somehow insulting to be told something that is educating them, but I don't think that people should be afraid to help spread knowledge and the correct way of doing things. And
Well, and you don't have to be nasty about it. I mean, just explain to them, and a lot of times they just don't know.
shut up, Ron. But yeah, also I'll tell you guys what let's see, old Chad Wall had a story. He said that, and I know he's told me this story too. Him and Glenda were sitting at one of their favorite spots, and he had a rod, took off peeling line. He sets the hook, and he starts seeing the water just boiling. Then he sees two green eyes look at him, and it's a face mask. He just sat down, dumbfounded, and she swam up to the boat, lifted her flippers up, unwrapped her line, and she took the respirator out of her mouth and said, "Thank you." It freaked him out. He caught a lady scuba diving. But yeah, go ahead. If you got another story, Chuck, go ahead and go for it.
I don't have many. Me and Leanne, we was pre-fishing up at in the Monsters of the Ohio on Thursday before the tournament, and we headed downriver, but we wasn't planning going on all the way to the dam or locking through. We was just going to try to find us a good hole that we could get to pretty quick and try to hit that morning bite the day of the tournament. So we found this nice little secondary channel edge, and we had a bunch of live bluegills, and we got on these small flatheads. They were 8 to 12 pounds, and I didn't care if I was fishing this hole out. I was having a good time, and I knew they probably wouldn't be there Saturday morning anyway. So we sat around. We probably caught 7 or 8 of these little boogers, and Leanne's pink black horse rod just bowed down huge, boy, and she got all excited. She grabbed it. She fought this fish forever. So it broke the water about 10 yards from the boat, and it was the biggest gar I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, how am I going to get this thing off without, I said, well, I'm just going to get it as close as I can, and I'm going to cut the leader. Um, so, I told her to back up in the boat. She backed up a pretty good ways, and about that time, it just made this big roll, and it just splashed the crap out of me, and the hook came out, and it was gone. But I thought that's a pretty good fish story, them, getting something other than a catfish when you're expecting a catfish, and getting let down like that at the last minute. I think those make pretty good fish stories. It was a monster on the Ohio, though, I'll tell you that.
You don't have like any early fishing stories or anything that, I mean, like I said, it doesn't have to be a huge fish or one that got away or anything, just one that's memorable.
Yeah, there's my dad was working 712s at the aircraft hangar at working on the Air Force airplanes and all, and I mean this went on for years, and it was during my teenage years where doing stuff like this was very important. And he had a really good friend that was always going and doing stuff like that. He was a big
Oh, you froze up
whittle
there.
worms.
There you go, you're back.
We would fiddle worms. We would go out ginseng hunting, and and he would take me down to the hide and tallow where we would turn it in, and he just make this ungodly amount of money. But every time we did good on some ginseng or very nice fiddle worm harvest, he would sell these big old long fiddle worms. We would grab a big bucket full of those fiddle worms, and we would go below the dam catfishing. And I caught a 26-pound catfish below the dam with 2 turbines on right off the catwalk. Um, and that 26-pound flathead, I mean, blue was the biggest fish. I mean, that thing we weighed it with spring scales, and when I pulled it up, he said that's a 25-pounder for sure. He knew his catfish. And back then nobody had cameras. Nobody had cameras on their phone. Nobody had little pocket cameras. No telling what kind of stuff was missed at the time. But that was the greatest thing in the world for me. I never thought a catfish could get that big. I heard about the ones the size of Volkswagens that laid up under the dams, and when I caught that one, I thought he was one of them. I mean, I had to bring him around to the edge of the catwalk and bring him up to the riprap where a guy climbed down and got him up the rocks for me. And um, I did bring that fish home, and my family ate that fish because back then I didn't know anything about you know having breeding size catfish or anything. Um, but for a long time that catfish was that meant a lot to me, and that really got my addiction going. And right after that I was probably 15 or so, and I went to the military after that. And when I got to Fort Benning, every moment I got, I was down on the Chattahoochee River with a buddy of mine from Pennsylvania, and we were fishing for catfish. Everybody else wanted to go bass fishing, and that guy RB introduced me into catfishing, and he made sure that he taught me a lot, and I probably owe my fishing addiction to him. The way he fueled it for me.
All right. Lyle, you got another one?
Yeah, I do, but before I do, Jacob Lindsay has sent me a message on here. Wants to know if any of us have ever caught sturgeon, and for me, I have caught tons of sturgeon. Mississippi River's full of them, and you can catch them anywhere from uh, 8 or 10 inches long to 3, 4 feet long. Just depends, but they're pallet sturgeon, and there are a lot of fun. Good eating if you don't mind cleaning them. They're a pain in the butt to clean, but uh, they're fun to catch too, Jacob. Um, I have a story that happened when I was a kid, and this wasn't river fishing or something. We was actually catfishing, but um, my dad passed away when I was 15, and he had severe heart trouble. And one of the few things that he could do at the end was go fishing. And about every night, him and I and we'd go out to a pond and we'd go fishing, and it was full of channel cat and stuff. And the guy had actually got a hold of us and wanted us to go out there and catch these fish because muskrats and stuff had ate holes in the dam, and it had broke, and most of the bigger fish had went on down the creek and on into Salt River back in those days. But we was out there, and we'd go out and catch these channel cat at night, and then you just had a stringer to put the fish on, and uh, this pond was just absolutely full of turtles. And every night you go out there, and if you wasn't careful, while you put these little channel cat on there, them turtles would come up there and they'd eat these channel cat off your stringer. And I pulled up a stringer full of heads one night, and I told Dad, I said, next time we come out here, I'm going to stop that. And he said, okay. So a night or two later, we got ready to leave, and before we left the house, a friend of mine named is Alan Finley, a good friend of mine those days, and he decided he was going to go with us. So we run out to this pond, and we're catching these fish because you can just catch the fire out of them. And everybody had 3 or 4 of them, and I put them on the stringer, and I set the stringer up really close to where I could watch the fish. And sure enough, here come one of them big old snappers, and that baby come running up there. And about the time he was chewing that first one up, I'd put a hatchet in the tackle box, and I took a big old swing at that turtle's head, and I missed his head, and I hit him in the middle of the back, and the hatchet stuck in his back, and I couldn't get it out, and I lifted that turtle up, and he had a head on him about twice the size of my fist, and he's got his neck craned around there, and I'm trying to get away from him, and he's trying to get a hold of me, and he's chasing me around in circles, and I'm trying to get somebody to help, and Dad couldn't get over there fast enough, and my buddy, he done fell off of his seat. He was laughing so hard he thought it was pretty comical. This turtle was chasing me around, and I really thought he was going to get a hold of me, and pretty soon Dad got over and stuck something in his mouth, and we ended up cutting his head off and dressing him. But um, you have no idea what a 28-pound snapper will do when that thing's got that neck craned in. Them necks are about a foot long on them babies, and they'll chase you around as long as you'll let them. And it was quite that was something that I won't forget. And it may not have to do with fishing, but if you'd have been on the hatchet end of that turtle, you would have understood where I was at.
We got a couple requests to talk about this a little bit. Jerry Kirby apparently caught 100+ pound blue catfish. Would have probably been a state record, but only took pictures with it and decided to release it because
That's outstanding.
I guess they wasn't sure if they'd be able to keep it alive or whatnot, but he felt it was better to just get it back out and instead of being getting a record for it. That is something where that's I don't blame somebody, and I wouldn't blame somebody if they wanted to keep that fish, and they thought they could keep it alive, even if they thought it was going to die. I guess I'm not sure I would do that or not for a state record if I knew it was a state record. You want to say that you'll put it back, but you really don't know what you'll do. And on a situation like that, I would not be critical of somebody if they decided to keep that and make it to try to be a state record and have their name in a book and everything like that. It is only a name in a book and whatnot, but it is nice to be known that you've caught something that size. So in my personal opinion, it's awesome that he did that. And I don't want people to think that I can't speak for these guys here, but myself, I'm not somebody that says that you have to do that. And I'm not judgmental about it. You know, I think it's awesome that you caught that fish, and you're not a person that would normally keep that fish for any other reason. So, if you think you can keep it alive, or if you really think you know that it's a record and you're going to try to get it stated as a record, then that's good for you. You know, I definitely want to make sure that I clarify my stance on that. You know, I think it's in that situation, that's an individual's choice, and um, you can't be blamed for whatever your choice is on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you have to poke a hole in its lip and use a small stringer or a rope, um, to try to keep him alive, keep him in the water until the conservation boys get there. Um, I would much rather hope that he had a lip heal than, him just end up being thrown in the back of a truck. Plus they dry out so much and they will, regurgitate so much that, by the time they get weighed in, when they're out of the water, they lose a lot of weight. And if you can keep them from getting stressed out and keep them in the water, your record will hold a lot more than it will if you keep them out of the water for a long time. So, that's something that everybody should think and plan ahead because it could happen. And I've thought about it a lot. And that's one reason that I do not take my live well out of my boat, even when I'm not going to a tournament. I thought about it a lot. It still gets in the way. But, if I have a chance at that record, I want to be able to be one of those guys that can have him put in the books and he can still swim off too. And
Yeah,
there's no way that I would let them take it for research. I would totally deny them the research part.
yeah.
Oh,
What'd you say? Wow.
I say absolutely. They're not. If you catch something like that, there's no way they're going to kill it for research. That just couldn't happen.
No, I mean
Yeah, I mean, Rock.
I'd say I'd try to keep it alive and make my decision. I mean, if it were to pass when you're trying to get it, as a record, verified or whatever by DNR, if it were to pass or whatever, you know, get good pictures, measurements, things like that, so possibly you can get a replica made. Use the meat, don't let it go to waste or whatnot. But again, that's each individual's decision to make on that circumstance. It's not, if you're a person where you practice CPR on anything under 10 pounds or over 10 pounds, and keep some under 10s and stuff, that's of course better, especially um, for the community and for the sport. To if you decide to keep it and it passes, you let people know, hey, this was this situation, and if people give people crap for that, I honestly feel that that's taking it a little too far, and I'm not saying this guy got anything, that if he were to keep it, or if he had anybody say you shouldn't have kept it, or what led to his decision. But people also shouldn't be scared to keep a fish like that because of their being afraid of what people would think of them for doing it.
Yeah, like the Johnny Summers fish, the big one you see with him having the head pulled up out of the water and it floating on the sand flat next to the boat with his wife taking pictures. At one time, he gave me all the measurements. He turned, and also Bass Pro also gave him a replica of that fish, and he gave it back to Bass Pro because it was way too small. Because he gave them the exact measurements that he took of that fish with a tape measure. The fish was 71 inches long, and I think from the tip of the nose just to the beginning of the dorsal fin was like 28 inches. But from the weight to girth rule, a lot of people was estimating that fish was probably 165 to 170. Um, so I mean, no telling what that fish would have weighed. He could have killed it easy. He could have turned it in, and if the worst thing he did to it was stick that rope through its lip, and it ended up living, he should be very recognized for that. And they should be um, some type of record in each state that if you take pictures of certain measurements that you do get some kind of recognition, even though it's not a certified record. It still should be a documented record of some sort. If you
It froze up again.
can to be recognized for what you did for that fish.
Another is sort of along the same lines here. A Facebook post you guys might have seen, and I absolutely 100% agree with it. And I want to tell you guys what it says. It's basically a picture of a small blue. It says, uh, "My 6-inch fish that is 1 pound or whatever is still more of a trophy than any fish you caught from a pay lake." So that's 100% correct. Any fish that somebody caught in a wild river and not a pay lake is a trophy. And them guys that go around saying, "Oh, I caught this trophy," blah blah blah, I meet them in the real world all the time, and all you can do is try to educate them. But yeah, they haven't caught anything. But I got another story too. Or is it your turn, Lyle, or did you just do? I think you just did another one, didn't you?
I just did one.
All right. I guess going back to the well, I'll go to a bigger fish, and this was I probably talked about it on here before. The one of the hardest hit pools of the Ohio River is the Markland Pool. It's basically Vevey, Indiana, right around that area, and above, up through Lawrenceburg and Cincinnati and stuff like that. But that's one of the hardest hit commercially fished sections of the river. And this last year, I was fishing with Daniel Lux, um, and we were in a tournament where we went up into the Ohio, Kentucky area, not the Indiana, Kentucky area. We're sitting here fishing next to a barge. I hooked what I felt like was at least a 30-pound fish, and for for that area, most of the time, that 30-pound fish would have been a tournament winning fish. Um, the the fish that I had on, I'm fighting him. I'm fighting him, to the back of the boat. I'm standing back there, and it felt like almost like whenever you have like a mussel or a shell on the tip of your hook, and a fish eats it and just comes off. That's kind of like what it felt like. I don't know if any of you guys have felt that. I felt that as well, unfortunately. But yeah, it felt like it just came off. And so I'm kind of just like, I don't understand what just happened, but I reel my line in. I'm very, very mad because, like I said, this stretch of river, with the way that fish felt, that was probably a tournament winning fish. I get to looking, and that was the Gamakatsu 8/0 circle hook where it had broke. Because actually went to bait that hook, and that was when I realized it had broke the hook right at the tip, and that's the only thing I can think with a fish breaking a hook like that, and is it hits that hook, the tip of that hook sits in the hard bony part of the lip rather than that soft corner, and that fish does a head shake or something that's quick enough where it just snaps the metal in it, and they either have a bad, they had a bad production of them, a bad spot in production. Um, I've got some. I got a PM for about another story too, but yeah, we'll talk about that. Um, but yeah, I mean that was one where, as soon as that happened, I was very, I'd already had some problems with Gamakatsus and heard stories of them breaking, and right at that point, I pretty much said my Gamakatsus are no longer my big river hooks. They might be channel cat hooks, and that's it. Um, but that was my story on the Ohio River section there on a bigger fish that I lost. But yeah, I've got a question too about talking about Clint. Um, Clint asked a few questions in our chat, and want to try to get to them if I can. So see if we can. It says, how long can you fight a blue? His first question: how long can you fight a blue cat before fatigue becomes fatal? He's heard about swordfish, marlins, or sharks where they cut the line after so long due to the fish dying of fatigue. Um, I would say probably within about 5 minutes. If I don't have a fish in the boat in 5 minutes, I'll probably just cut the line. Um, I wouldn't. I would also say that if you get the fish in, and a little bit late in this conversation here, people were talking about the higher the water temperature, um, basically the less chance they have to survive, and that's because of the oxygen in the water and things like that. One good thing to do is if you have an adequate live well when you catch a fish in the warmer months or even in the colder months where that you get that fish in, you had a good hard long fight with him, maybe it was in deep water or whatever, don't just let that fish go right back to the water. Put that fish in your live well, let him recover in there with more oxygen in your live well. If you got some frozen 2 liters and stuff to cool that water down, um, keep him in there for an hour, 30, 45 minutes to an hour, and let him recover in there where he's not fighting current, he's not fighting anything, has more oxygen. Um, what do you guys have to say about that?
About keeping fish alive.
Well, if like how long that you think that you should fight it before you think the fatigue becomes fatal, and maybe what they could do to.
Well, I don't worry about that, and the reason I don't worry about that is because our live well's big enough, and we've got enough oxygen going into it that they'll come out of that live well stronger than they went in it. Even if you just picked it up out of the water and set it in there without fighting it's that doesn't worry me at all. I don't think that there's unless you're on him for 30 or 45 minutes in heavy current, I don't think that it's detrimental to the fish. That a big fish is pretty strong, and if you give him oxygen or adequate supply of oxygen, he'll be fine in a live well, and you just keep him in there until he's ready to go. I really don't worry about that. If you're set up correctly, you won't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't let them go until they take off. They
That's right.
they have to snatch themselves out of my hand. And most of the time, I've had them act real sluggish. I've actually put them into the water, and they just acted, non-responsive. And a couple of times it was a burping problem. I stuck the tube down their throat. They burped. I put them into the water, and they tore my hand off getting out of Dodge.
Yep.
So it had something to do, with having the bladder full of air, I believe.
If you get them babies in a good live well that has an air supply or an oxygen supply in them and let them rest up before you release them, you'll never have a problem with a stressed out fish.
Yeah, I mean, even a lot of times, even before pictures, it's good for you and them to rest up.
Yeah,
And
especially me.
yeah, and I seen Jason Bridges posting that. Um, that they caught a really big fish. He put it in the live well, let it get its energy back. Let his client get their energy back, and then did the little picture session, photo session, and released the fish. And and that was something really good that I learned from that post that he did there.
Okay, as another question that he had was he's heard some people say that fish over 70 pounds, when taken from the water, the stomach collapses under its own weight because they have no weight in water and don't have muscles to support themselves, causing them to puke. Is that true?
I don't think so because I've actually seen large blue cats laying up in the shallows with their dorsal fin sticking out of the water.
I'd have
So
to agree, yeah.
that's if you got them up quick from a depth, maybe, but they do puke in your live well for a reason. I've always thought that it's been stress.
I agree.
It may be the bumpy ride when you're riding, and they're bumping against the bottom. Um, but a lot of times I believe it was from stress. But I've never had it really affect a fish where they didn't swim off.
I always hate it when that happens because if you're in a tournament, it's costing you weight every time that happens.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, I mean, you'll have big, huge gizzard shad and everything else floating in your live well.
Unbelievable different things will come out of them.
Ducks, birds,
Mussels,
Yeah.
yeah, all kind of
And
stuff.
whatever it is, it really, really smells bad.
Yeah,
snakes.
that,
Yep. Yep, I definitely think that they don't collapse under their own weight. I definitely think that when they're pulled out of the water, um, that's the supporting of the belly and things like that is really crucial, and also even dropping them from just a couple of feet is way more harmful because of that fact that they've always been in water and they've never had their full weight hitting solid ground the way it does there. Um, I mean that kind of impact on a fish that's never had the gravity and things that we have above the water.
I don't believe that there is a fish of any size that is dropped from waist high. They may swim off, but I would be surprised if a very much of a percentage of them ever survive that drop because they just are not used to being slammed like that. And that's why we talked about this a week or so ago about weigh-slings and taking care of your fish with at weigh-ins on tournaments, and people's going to drop them. Hell, they've got away from me weighing my fish in. They've got away from me when I was weighing other people's fish in at tournaments. It's going to happen. There's no way to keep it from happening 100%, but you have to use every precaution, make sure you don't, because like you say, waist high, you drop a 50-pound fish, it's never had that much force hit anything hard before, and I would be surprised if very many of them ever survive that because they just have no idea what's happening to them, and there's no way you could tell what kind of internal damage has been done to that fish.
Another quick story I have, just real quick. If you guys remember the Ming Yang reels, my I'm gonna tell you right now, Paul Louderback, he got me. I mean, he got
And a
me
lot
good.
of other people.
I sold every Abu Garcia reel I had, 7,000s and 6,000s, 6,500s, and bought the Ming Yang equivalents and had a bunch of money to spare because I was, under the impression these were the next best reels. And I've got a video where I was down on our derby trip with a couple of my buddies, and I'm fighting about I don't know, 2 or 3 pound channel cat, and the reel handle, the power handle, broke off on me while I was fighting that channel cat, and I had to reel it in with my finger, just trying to keep the reel going. And I ended up taking a picture of the the metal pin that connects the power handle to I guess the metal there, and it showed that that wasn't even a solid metal. It was almost a hollow piece of metal that was filled in with a ceramic type material. So I mean that's just how cheap these things were made. You know, not to mention all the other problems that I had with him. I mean, he got me.
Well, he got a lot of other people too, and then acted like there was nothing wrong with the crap that he was selling. It was just junk. But Bobby Vargas made a video, and I'm trying to remember if he beat one up or whether he burned it or what he done. But he had made this statement in a post someplace that they didn't even make a good weight to fish with, and he's exactly right. They was not as quality as a 2-ounce sinker.
Yeah.
They just was terrible.
Another thing I know Chuck knows about, and quite a few other people might have seen, um, Alabama's trying to make some budget cuts, and they're talking about closing a bunch of the state parks, including Joe Wheeler State Park, Gunnersville State Park. I think there's about 7 or 12 of them, something along that lines. And you know, you guys that went down to the winter on Wheeler and stayed in them cabins, that's what they're talking about closing. You know, we're just now getting started. There's a guy on Facebook that opened up a Save the Joe Wheeler State Park Cabins Facebook site with a petition .org thing. You can sign the petition. I signed the petition. Said, you know, Catfish guys are just getting started. You know, we're just getting started on holding big tournaments down there and utilizing those cabins, and it might not be making money, you know, right this moment, but I think it has the potential to do so if they can utilize it and really start putting some backing behind people like Daniel Parsons down there.
I don't know what these people think about it, you know. Them cabins, is my understanding, and most of them have been there since the 30s. They was paid for when that lake was built by people doing the work on the dams and whatever was going on down there at the times. So all they have is maintenance and upkeep and the people that clean them. How in the world can that not survive and make money? If it's not, it's got to be poor management. I don't care what they say.
Yeah. You know, that you know, people need to go and at the very least, you know, we talk about, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to go and fill out a petition and say, you know, this is why I want you guys to keep it. You know, here I am, and have our backs on things like that. You know, that's what we need to do: support each other, support issues where it can affect what we're trying to do with catfishing, and that's, you know, it's not directly into catfishing, but it also can be. You know, Daniel's just getting that tournament started right now, and without those cabins there, that really limits the close places to be able to stay to that tournament. And you know, whether or not, you know, they can find another way to make their cuts, or, you know, different parks that may not have the same sort of fishing and things like that near them that they could possibly do. That's out of my knowledge base right now. So if you can, go to the Facebook page, look it up, Save the Joe Wheeler State Park. I believe that's the name of it. Go to that page, like it, share it. Go to the petition. It says it has a petition thing right on it. Go to the petition thing. Just, you don't even got to type anything. You could probably just put click sign petition, and click your name, you know, click accept on it or whatever. And what, do you have any more on that specific issue, Chuck, that you know about or would like to say?
Not really. I shared the petition page today. I've had people, you know, send me messages and asking me, can out-of-state people do it? You know, I didn't see on there where it wouldn't hurt, and I think it would help because, you know, most of the people who come visit those parks are from out of state. They need to think about how much it's going to be hurting the economy in those areas. You know, as many tourists as we get to come down fishing and enjoying our scenery, our parks and everything up along the Tennessee River. Gulf Shores has a state park down at it. You know, they're just spread all over. And, They're thinking if they shut these places down, um, that they're going to be able to save some money, which I don't think is going to help one bit.
Well, that's just like I say. If they're losing money, it's just poor management on their part. There's no way them places was paid for by the people that was doing all that in the 30s or whenever it was, and there's no way that they're losing money on them other than just pissing the money away. It's
By the
just
way,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
most of those areas are given to the state of Alabama, by the power company. The power company owns most of that land. That land is donated to the state by those power companies, to give back, and for them to build on, and so people can enjoy, um, so that they need to keep letting people come enjoy. I mean, everybody's having to reschedule fishing tournaments, not knowing if they're going to be closed down or not. They're not giving anybody a straight answer. If they're going to or not. They're saying it's going to be a good chance. Um, so guys are going ahead and rearranging their schedules, and picking different ramps, and using hotels and giving hotels the business now. So I can't see where it's going to help them. By them renting out one cabin, that's paying one employee for that day, and I'm sure they rent out far more cabins than they got employees.
absolutely.
Oh,
So
I'm sure that's probably paying for a couple employees for a day. I mean,
yeah, so I mean, by them shutting down the park, that's people losing their jobs. Also, they're not going to have employment. None of the park people, none of the guards, none of the office personnel, none of the park rangers, none of that stuff. Nobody's going to be employed.
that's the local towns losing tourism money.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot more to it than just them, too. I mean, it can be really more than just a state park thing. It can be the town loses out too. The town loses a lot of potential money, really, probably even more.
Well, you just for example, you take that Winter Blues on Wheeler tournament that was down there. First time that there was, how many boats was in that, Chuck?
I believe it was in the high 30s.
Let's say
Okay,
36, 37.
and almost all of them was from out of town, and we
11 different
filled that.
states.
Yeah, we filled that park up, and you're not going to tell me in January for any other reason that many people would have been at that state park.
Oh no.
And we all ate out. Almost every meal, everybody ate out. Now, we did eat a few meals in the cabin, but for the most part, we ate out. We filled up our tank in the boat every day. We filled up the truck twice while we was down there. All that money will be gone if they don't allow that to where he can have that tournament down there. That park will not only lose the money, he'll probably move it somewhere else to where everybody will have a economical place to stay. So not only are they hurting the park, they're hurting all the local businesses around that park.
Oh yeah.
That restaurant that we all ate in. Do you have any idea how many meals they fixed that night? I mean, we waited a long, long time to get served because they had no idea there was going to be that many people down there. Besides the regulars they had coming in on a Friday night, that place, I'll guarantee you, that restaurant would like to see that happen again.
Oh yeah, they were doing a little bit of complaining about it. I mean, but the management was loving it.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Um,
they had to.
the employees wasn't, but that's going to be anywhere you go. Um, you
Well,
know,
but I'll tell you what, there was some good waitresses, and they was glad to see it, and they all made money. They got tipped very well, so they'd be glad to see us back.
yeah, I mean they knew we was going to have a small little meet and greet, but you know, Daniel was trying to give them somewhat of a how many was going to be there and all. He didn't know what to tell them, and I guess everybody thought it was going to be mandatory. But I mean, what, 80 people, 70 something people were in there.
Oh, at least.
Just in one little banquet room, and it was overwhelming.
Well,
And
there was people waiting outside to get in.
oh yeah,
Now, where else are you going to have that on a Friday night in that little old town in January? How many times is that going to happen down there for them guys?
oh yeah, that was a big booster for their bottom line on that month of January, and it was
I
right off the
guarantee
bat.
it. Well, and the Shell station that was up the road from there at the stop sign. Twice we filled up the boat and had to wait in line to get gas, and they didn't have just one pump; they had a whole bunch of pumps. There was that many boats and trucks getting fuel there, so they noticed it too.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing that these guys don't understand. They're not just hurting the people that work for the park; they're hurting the local economy because a couple of them places. That either made or broke their January, regardless of what they say.
Yeah. Now, for the caption contest this week, Mark Cooper is our winner with my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
I want to know where that picture come from.
That picture came from the was it the Deerfield Inn that when we used to go to the in Cumberland City?
Yeah,
I think it's called the Deerfield Inn, something along that lines.
Yeah.
It's in Cumberland City. I posted another picture. Another hot tub that was this last year.
Is that the one with Jason in the tub with you?
No.
Oh,
no.
Excuse me.
That was Heath in the tub with me with his gimp suit on and snorkel, and Jason photographing in the mirror.
Okay.
And then the other one, I posted a little bit downer. I said different hot tub, same FUD. That was in Derby, Indiana, the cabin we stayed at for a week. That was when I flat-headed fished all week long. But yeah, that's what. I didn't pick the photo people. This was one that they wanted, and everybody's like, "Oh, we're gonna do the rub-a-dub-dub with the FUD in the tub picture." So.
Yeah. Me and Lyle voted on it, and we had Heath send it. And,
yep. It's funny too.
So if you clawed your eyes out or were temporarily blinded or anything like that, I take no responsibility. You can blame Chuck and Lyle for it.
Oh yeah, we'll
congratulations,
take it.
Mark. That was a very, very good one you come up with, Mark, and but there was a lot of good ones that come up. I appreciate everybody that participated, and it's been a lot of fun. We're going to have one more, and this is going to be something we're going to need to do more often.
This has been the most fun contest that we've done to date, I believe.
Yep, it's I think for the last one, whoever photoshops the best picture of Rob Klobfelder with a thong on. Well, actually, you can do whatever you want. No, I don't think. Right now, I don't know if we're looking for a picture with all three of us together at like the Monsters on the Ohio. So if I don't know if Rena Stitcher has one or if anybody has the picture. I thought one of us got a picture of it, but
I did too, but I can't find it.
I think as much video as we got and as good as Heath and them should be able. They might be able to do a clip out of one of theirs.
Yeah.
To get a pic out of it.
We want to try to get a picture of all three of us together at Monsters on the Ohio, and that'll be the next caption contest for this next week. But Mark Cooper, send me a message on Facebook. Give me your address. I just got Jason Mathenia's out today, so you should be getting that in the next couple of days. So, again, Heath or somebody, if anybody can get us a picture of us three together at that Monsters on the Ohio, that's what we're going to use. So if you could let us know and give it to us, and we'd appreciate it. And this has been a lot of fun. There's a lot of people again that joined tonight. We've had over 30 people in the chat. Lots of good stories talked about, catching scuba divers and fish that got away. And we definitely want to try to get some guests on again here soon. We haven't had one on for a while. We're going to try to get that. We're going to try to get some more, um, I guess, the videos and things like that showing how to some of the different rigs and stuff. You guys got ideas for other episodes, topics, things like that you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know. Again, Justin Connor, I also want to tell you, great job on that. First place I believe it was Cabela's, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
Cabela's Ink Cat.
93 pounds.
I,
He was they were 30 something pounds in first place, over second,
That's an outstanding job they done.
and
yeah,
had a couple of very nice flatheads over 30 pounds. I mean, beautiful flatheads. And Justin's one of them guys that, has only been on the scene for a couple of years, and he was fishing without Tabitha this time. So he even did it without his lady luck, and he was partner up with Jacob Donnelly, and they really done it in. And this is really big for Justin. This is probably, to my knowledge, I think this is one of his biggest wins that he's had. He's had a lot of wins, but this is one right here. I think that's really going to break him out, and he's just one of them guys that come along ever so often. He's just got what it takes to get it done, and he's making it happen every time he goes out.
did we lose a bunch of people in the chat?
I'm showing 32.
Yeah, but I just reloaded it and it's showing 6 and it's just refreshing and won't come back.
That's what mine's doing.
And nobody's talked for a while.
Yeah, I see that.
I seen where Fudd said test. Russ Baker 1 minute ago, 2 minutes ago. Rob 2 minutes ago.
I haven't seen anything for 25 minutes.
Yeah, me either.
Huh.
Yeah, now it says there's only 7.
Yeah, I shut mine down earlier.
Yeah, it looks like it was. Well, we apologize. But, yeah, we're going on about an hour and 15 minutes, so I guess if you got a closing statement there, Chuck, go ahead and go for it.
I really don't have too much. I'm gonna be fishing out of a tournament, the Hilljack Trail out of Columbus, Phoenix City area, down in the Columbus, Georgia area. They're coming up to Lay Lake. They scheduled this tournament to come up, so they could all do a little bit of pre-fishing before the Cabela's tournament, the 1st of May. So all them guys are coming up here in my neck of the woods, and if everything goes right, I'm gonna try to get down there and fish with them. And that's Treese Owensby, Tim Owensby, and all them guys. I think Jody Adkins and they're all going to be coming up. So I think that's going to be really fun. And we got the big Cabela's coming to town. The super event. It's going to be a 2-day tournament. I think it's the 8th and 9th of May, or 7th and 8th of May. I think 8th and 9th, coming to town, and so everybody's just trying to get ready for it without fishing the lake dry, and it's going to be a really fun time. This is going to be one of my first Cabela's tournaments, and I'm glad they're finally bringing something around here to to try to get catfishing on the map. That's about all I got for the night, guys.
All right. The thing that I am aware of right now, the only thing that I'm aware of as far as tournaments is Twisted Cat Outdoors, May 2nd, Burlington, Iowa. Be a channel cat tournament. To the best of my knowledge, there's no blues that far up the Mississippi River, and it will be a great deal of fun. We had a tournament up there last year for Calvin Myers. It was an outstanding day. Everybody had a blast, got a lot of fish, and there is some really, really good channel cat in that area. So if you like to fish for channel cat, come out and see us. Get on the Twisted Cat Outdoor page on Facebook, and Alex has all the information as far as I know there. We'd love to see you. That's it for me this time.
All right. Yeah, I believe the ICA has a tournament out of Worthington, Indiana, this Saturday. The following Saturday is this Saturday is going to be a 7:30 to 4:30 in the daytime. Next Saturday, I believe, is our first night tournament, so it'll be 7:30 at night till 7:30 in the morning, Saturday, Sunday. And that one will be at Grandview in 2 weeks. This next week is at Worthington. Looking forward to see everybody out there. I did let's see, I did want to say again to everybody that showed up and that was in the chat and everything, thanks for showing up. Thanks for participating in the chat and telling the stories with us. You know, it's part of what makes it awesome for us too, is that you guys participate so much, and the contest that we had has been a lot of fun, and hopefully we're going to keep making it fun and having interesting things going on, good prizes and stuff like that. You guys want some of the advertisements? You know about the advertisements on the page. Get a hold of me. I can get you an advertisement set up. I apologize for the chat breaking down on us a little bit here in the last part of the show. I think it's Lyle's fault for some reason. Just got to blame someone.
Sure you do.
He did it. It was him. But hey, everybody, if you get to go out fishing this week, have a good time, stay safe, and stay out of my spots, okay?